What's going on, guys? Welcome back to NFL Turf Talk. This is an exclusive edition midweek show. I'm one half of your host, Dylan Davis. You can find me on Twitter at DylanJD98. Let me get this out of the way so you guys can see the ads on the screen. This is my man, Scotty, to my right, my co-host here on Turf Talk. Check him out on Twitter at Scotty John. As you guys know, we are streaming through you guys live on DSM Media's Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter channels. If you're new to the channel, head on over to at DSM_media on Twitter. Hit that follow button. We greatly appreciate it. And then while you're at it, Scotty, check out the link tree in our bio to take you to every social media platform we are available on. If you guys want to be interactive throughout this show, head on over to the YouTube channel specifically for multiple reasons, my man. A, to get your comments, questions, thoughts, concerns pulled up on the screen. That's the best way to be interactive with us live here on the channel. B, if you subscribe to the DSM Media YouTube channel, you will be involved in all of our future giveaways that we have planned coming up in the near future, as well as our man Phil, host of Fairway to Heaven and Trending in the AM here on DSM Media. He will be giving away a $100 Fanatics gift card if we can reach the 700 subscriber mark by midnight tonight. I think it's more than reasonable, Scotty. So, guys, little incentive for you. Head on over to DSM Media on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. Adam, what's going on, man? Let us know your thoughts on today's initial 53-man roster. Excuse me. I think that's very important for people to understand, Scotty. No, this is most likely not the set-in-stone roster that will be heading into week one. It's very close, very similar, but it's not identical to what it will be. And then, of course, Howard Roseman at it again, working the phones out of the blue, no smoke to this one beforehand, fleeces the New Orleans Saints again in another trade for CJ Gardner-Johnson. Scotty, what's going on, buddy?
What is up, man? What is up? Exciting day nonetheless. Just so much to get into, but not really so much, right? Like it's just the 53-man final roster.
Yeah.
But the trade is what it's all about. And I know we got to be buzzing right now, but how are you feeling, man? I'm interested. I know we've discussed it all day. I don't know what you want to get into. Do you want to talk about the biggest part of the day first? The actual trade. How do you feel about Chauncey Gardner-Johnson? I mean, I'm pretty.
Got to get used to saying the tongue twister. It's to me, it's CJ.
Man.
It's CJ, bro.
You can try CGJ.
Yeah, no, not trying that. No, that's hard. That's harder. So we're going with CJ or Gardner-Johnson. We're either going minimizing the first name to CJ or we're just going Gardner-Johnson, not the full name here. However, this is big, man. This is really big. Is he Jesse Bates? No. Okay, he's not a star safety. And in fact, Scotty's really not even a safety. He's played a very limited role, not a lot of reps and snaps played at the safety position. He's a nickel corner for the better part of his career in New Orleans. However, he can play safety, and that's where he will play safety. And the biggest thing to me, I know people are worried about the snap count at that position. He's not a traditional safety. But to me, this is where Gannon and that scheme and it all comes into play to figure it out. Is it the ideal fit? Is it a perfect fit? No. But you can sure as hell figure this one out. He was a top 4 or 5 playmaker, top 4 or 5 player contributor on that Saints defense. That Saints defense is a top unit in this league. He is a huge addition because it solidifies the last hole we had not only on this roster, but specifically on the defensive side of the ball. And to me, that changes a lot of things, man. When you look at the secondary now consisting of Darius Slay, James Bradbury, Avonte Maddox in the slot, and now you put CJ Gardner-Johnson next to Marcus Epps, where you would have had Anthony Harris next to Marcus Epps. That's a big difference, man.
Huge, man.
And God forbid, knock on wood, that like Avonte Maddox was where to get hurt or Slay or Bradbury, he can play corner. It adds depth to a slim position group there as well. So this was a plus 100% knock out of the ballpark move and trade by Howie Roseman. Not to mention, I didn't even bring up what they gave up for him.
Yeah, because I mean,
So
is it
the
worth
trade
it?
was the
They may as
Eagles
well have
received.
handed them to us. I mean,
the Eagles received Gardner-Johnson and an additional 7th-round pick, and Howie gave up a 2023 5th-rounder and a 2024 6th-rounder. That is the worst of the 2 6-rounders they have that season.
Yeah.
So A-plus trade, and it changes the defense, man. So let me ask you this. Obviously, I want your thoughts on the trade and who the player is that the Eagles are getting in CJ Gardner-Johnson, what he brings to the table. But I also want to know when we talked about Jesse Bates for a week or so, we mentioned how it could take the Eagles defense from like a top 10 unit, which they were probably around, to a top 5 unit. Where's he moved the needle to you now? Where does CJ Gardner-Johnson move the needle to? It might not be top 5, but it could definitely be right around there to me.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about adding Gardner-Johnson to the mix, especially in that secondary, it's just a matter of confidence building, right? And I also think, to your point about him being mostly a nickel corner, obviously the numbers don't lie as far as the snaps that he's played,
Right.
but what I would say is the Eagles obviously have confidence in him as safety if they were willing to move on from Ant Harris, who, let's be honest, nobody saw that really coming. It's not necessarily a surprise or a huge loss or anything like that. He wasn't somebody that stood out the last season.
No, but he seemed to be a veteran leader presence on
He's a
that
leader.
defense. Right.
And so I think that is the key there when you're thinking about cutting Ant Harris, is that they're expecting Gardner-Johnson to come in here and be one of those guys, right? And the immediate thing I think is that you think of the Saints and that underappreciated tree of safeties, and who I'm talking about here. I'm talking about Malcolm Jenkins, who came over here and became a star safety
right
after
and he wasn't a traditional safety either.
He was not. He's very similar in what we're talking about here, as far as somebody who comes up in the box. He's a good tackler, but then also had the most interceptions in his career last year with 3. I know it's not, mind-blowing, but 3 interceptions, that makes a big-ass difference.
In only 11 games started. In only 11 games started as well.
Only 11 games started, so 3 interceptions in those games. Mm-hmm. And obviously, he's going to have a lot more opportunities, I would imagine, at the safety spot. He's going to be able to move all around the field. So I'm excited. I think you grab somebody from a pedigree defense like the Saints, one that has been established, one that has been really good the last couple of years, and you bring in a guy who's going to be able to fit a role for whatever Gannon finds for him. And I think that is perfect. Obviously it's second needle to, a Jesse Bates, but what do you give up to get Jesse Bates? It's almost the best move you could have made for a safety in reality.
Right. Like, obviously we were both in agreement. We would have given up a lot for Jesse Bates, but would you rather have given up potentially a 1st-round draft pick or a 2nd rounder and someone else like Isaac Seumalo or Andre Dillard or someone like that, taking away from your offensive line or whatever the case may be? Or would you rather take a level down in CJ Gardner-Johnson for a 5th-round draft pick, essentially?
Yeah.
I mean, it's really it's a no-brainer for what the cost was and what he brings. And something else that he brings, dude, and I've seen it before, like he stands out to me, but I'm not going to sit here and act like I've seen a lot of CJ Gardner-Johnson over the last couple of seasons. Right. I don't watch a ton of Saints games unless, they come across the red zone or whatever. But he's a dog.
Yeah.
He is chippy. Almost every single report that came out directly after the trade was announced on Twitter today was that Philly is going to love this guy. They're going to love his character. He just gets under the skin of every opponent every single week. That's perfect. That is when you talk about, I get it. Anthony Harris was a leader. Marcus Epps is that young, he's not a rookie anymore, but that young safety to go next to a veteran.
Yeah.
And while CJ Gardner-Johnson's while he's a veteran, he's only 24 years old too. So he just brings, I just feel like he brings so much, and it's got, like, I'm true. The reason this was so different is because it's the finished product now. Like we for so long, this entire month of August, we've sat here and it's always been this defense looks really good on paper, but There's no but. There's nothing to come after that statement anymore. It's this defense looks really good on paper. And when you have, listen, I'm not asking for recognition from national media or anything like that. It doesn't, their takes are just as good as ours. They're worth the same as ours. Nothing. They're just opinions, they're thoughts, right? But when you have like Amina Kimes and when you have people from those type of media outlets coming out and saying that Howie Roseman has potentially built a top 3 to 5 roster in all of the National Football League, that says something. That's just not the fan base overreacting to a pickup and being like, oh man, it's our year. It's getting recognition from the outside world as well as to how good this unit could be.
Yeah, I agree. It's kind of like the missing piece. Now, obviously, I don't want to like hype him up too much, but I don't think we are. I think we're just believing in the potential, and that's the reason the Eagles traded for him. And on the other side of that, let's say, to the doubter that says CGJ, Gardner-Johnson is not
very good,
a good safety. I tried. I'm gonna keep playing with it, but let's just say somebody out there doesn't believe he's a good safety, doesn't believe he's worth, whatever, giving him an extension. What you gave up for him and the way it was laid out on Twitter, I want to give credit, but I don't actually have it pulled up here. Basically equals out to Jay Jaw in a 5th for Gardner-Johnson. So, I mean, what you gave up, if he is nothing more than a rental for this season, that's still not a lot to give up for a season of a starting caliber safety. That's not a lot to give up.
And I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I don't mean to sound like I'm like overhyping or overreacting.
No, not at all.
I just think he's so complimentary to the rest of this defense. He's not a star, but he's a stud. And he's a stud. He's a playmaker. You mentioned the interception totals, the tackles. Like if you're a top 3 or 4 piece on a Saints defense from last year, you're a hell of a football player, okay?
Exactly.
And when you put him on the back end with everything else we've discussed all summer long with this defense, that's the part where that's got me super excited. It's not CJ Gardner-Johnson himself.
Yeah.
It's CJ Gardner-Johnson added to what was already built here this offseason.
Exactly. And just to carry off your point there, adding to him to Marcus Epps, who, maybe we weren't high enough on him, whatever the case may be. I don't even care. Right. He's getting a lot of hype right now. Obviously, Peter Schrager was on Good Morning Football this morning.
Our man George has been banging the table for
George has been banging the table. You got to give credit to our viewers. Of course, Peter Schrager was talking about it on Good Morning Football this morning. He had him as a top 10 breakout player this season in Marcus Epps. So you just talk about putting 2 young, just full of potential safeties. And they're kind of different, right? They're kind of different in what they're good at, what they excel at. It creates excitement of this defense. Now we have 2 safeties that we believe could be part of our future, as well as good right now in the moment. This could be both of their breakout seasons. Because I think Gardner-Johnson takes the next step with this Eagles defense. I think they're going to use him a lot more in the safety position. It's going to give him a lot more opportunity. So overall, man, I'm excited. I think, he can, like I said, take the next step, become one of those, maybe not a household safety. I won't go that far, but maybe just really, implement his name in the NFL as a strong safety. And I hope that that's the case. But even if not, the other side of that is you did not give up anything in order to get him. And
it also gets his feet wet here as to where it could give you an advantage to bring him back next year.
Exactly.
If he likes Philadelphia, if they're successful, if he has a strong role in this defense. Now, obviously, if he goes out in this system and balls out, he might go out and get a bag next offseason. I don't know. I can't worry about that. But it at least gives you a more of an advantage now that he's here for the season. Yeah. Whereas if you tried to get him in the offseason next year, where he can be a staple in this defense going forward. Last question that I have for you regarding the Gardner-Johnson trade and the addition there. We talked about this entire time. Mm-hmm. He's going to be the starting safety for the Eagles. Now I know they asked Howie and Sirianni what their plan is for him. Nick kept it Nick. kept it close to the vest. He said we're in game plan mode right now. We're in game plan week right now. We're not, he hasn't played for us yet. Why would we give Detroit any tips on, where we're going to put him? He's the safety. However, we do know that a certain slot corner here, who it's his role here. I'm not suggesting to take him out of this role. But Avonte Maddox did start out here as a safety. And while I don't remember it being too pretty, I don't remember it being too ugly either.
Yeah.
So let's say the transition to safety isn't working out. Is it plausible to take a guy who's done it before in a Avonte Maddox, bump him back to safety, and now you have a premier slot corner in his natural habitat in CJ Gardner-Johnson? That's not what I want to do. I hope that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I think it's a viable option if he can't translate to safety smoothly.
Why not? Why not? And like you said, it just gives you versatility amongst your DBs. And that's what else do you want? Like, that was one of the commodities when we had Jalen Mills here. I know not everybody was a fan of Jalen Mills, but he made some big plays for this Birds team. But the biggest thing about him, and the reason that he stayed with the Birds for so long, was his versatility, his ability to play safety, play corner, play on the outside at corner. So, having those types of pieces are ultimately what builds championships. I mean, Malcolm Jenkins, he wasn't your typical safety. He was playing down there, jamming wide receivers on the line a lot of the time. And I see a lot of that with Gardner-Johnson here. The other thing that I wanted to point out about him as well, just to kind of pick up your point, is to carry that on, I should say, 2 sacks last year as well. So he's back in the backfield disrupting.
I just think he's a playmaker, Scotty. I really do. I think he's a playmaker. I think he's a dog. He's young. He's explosive. I think he'll fit seamlessly in. And to go back to my last question to you, I don't think that's going to have to happen because I honestly, maybe I have too much faith in this dude without seeing him play in this system or in an Eagles uniform yet.
I don't think
so. But I think when you can ball like that, when I think you're just a good football player like he is in the secondary, he's a defensive back. I don't think we have to put him in a bubble and say he's a safety, he's a nickel corner, he's an outside corner. He's a defensive back. And I think when you're talented, when you're athletic like he is, I think he can fit in pretty seamlessly into that position. And it's not like he's never done it. It's not like he has 0 snaps at safety. He has some reps at that position. So
and
we'll see. I'm excited.
He's going with 2 corners, Darius Slay and James Bradbury. Guys that have been through the mud and
with
they got
that defensive
down.
line, with a better linebacking core, with a Marcus Epps who has some high believers in him at the moment. So if everything goes to plan, this unit, man, don't let me get ahead of myself. Is this unit a top 5 unit?
I don't know if it's top 5. I don't
know.
It's
definitely a wait and see. I'm not talking. I'm not trying to crown paper champs.
As a top 10 unit, like you can argue with a wall. Like this team is just it's.
Okay, let's say this with the upside of being a top 5 unit, with the ceiling of a top 5 unit.
I think that's fair at this point. I think that's very fair, barring health. And as always, that's always a caveat. But not only the starters, but the depth, man. I mean, like. We've never had depth like this at linebacker. Never.
No, man. And
never.
When you just go back and look at the defense last year on paper, the names, and you translate them to what they are now, like I saw a tweet about it earlier, and they went through everything. You go from Steven Nelson and James Bradbury. You go from Alex Singleton to Kaiser White / Nakobe Dean. You add Jordan Davis, or you go from Alex Singleton to Hassan Reddick. You go from Ant Harris or Rodney McLeod to CJ Gardner-Johnson, right? Like the upgrades at every single position, every level of this defense has been tremendous this offseason. And what it does is puts the weight of the world on Jonathan Gannon's shoulders.
That's a very fair point.
If Jalen Hurts has all this pressure, which he does, and it's fair and it's valid, Jonathan Gannon sure as hell has just as much pressure on his shoulders. This dude already coming off of an historically bad statistic-wise season as a defensive coordinator. His first time being a defensive coordinator. after being an assistant in other categories, got head coaching jobs or head coaching offers and interviews last offseason. And it was all the personnel's fault. So this year, that excuse is gone. Just like for Jalen Hurts, how the excuse of the help and the weapons around him is gone, the excuse of the lack of personnel for Gannon's scheme is out the freaking window. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see where it gets to. But let's get into this initial 53-man roster. And before I pull up share my screen here with what it looks like right now, Adam checking in. I didn't forget about you, Adam. Are you guys surprised that Devin Allen, Carson Strong, and Reed Sinnett getting cut, going with 2 quarterbacks? So no, I am not surprised that Devin Allen got cut. He was about wide receiver 8 or 9 on a depth chart that was only going to keep 5. I saw the speed. He's is he an Olympian? Is he technically an Olympian?
I think so, yeah.
Right?
Olympic hurdler.
Yeah. So I get all of it. Wasn't going to work out. And then I'm surprised they only have 2. However, Howie did address today in the presser that there will be a quarterback on the practice squad. They'll add a quarterback to the 69-man total roster. So someone will be back. But in terms of those 2, no. Clearly something was off. Clearly something was off with Carson Strong for the fact that he barely got any work in the preseason, right? And then Reed Sinnett was just an absolute dumpster fire after he picked up some steam early on in camp, man. Like there were reports and tweets sent out that he's looking better than Gardner Minshew. Could he potentially be the backup? Should they move Minshew? Hell to the no, bro. He ended up being a disaster. They're both gone. It'll be interesting to see I don't know if they have any intention of bringing Carson Strong back to that group, but no, I don't know about Scotty, but I'm not surprised that all 3 of those guys are not on the roster.
Not at all. Not at all. I know, people were getting, fascinated with Devin Allen. It's just doesn't make sense. I mean, maybe if the team is just beat the hell up at receiver and they have nothing else to go to, but I mean, you're telling me there aren't some NFL experienced wide receivers out there that they could have on the roster rather than Devin Allen. It was fun. Just accept it for what it was. You know what I mean? He was a fun player to have on the preseason. But Carson Strong, Reed Sinnett, those guys. Even a third string quarterback should be better than that. Get a game manager as a third string quarterback. I don't know. I don't care if those guys are here or not. But obviously it is a little weird having 2 quarterbacks. You never know. But if they're saying they're going to get somebody on the practice squad, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, they for sure will. But all right, man, let's get into this 53-man roster. I'm sorry if it's a little small at the moment. It's just sharing my screen, so I can't really do anything about it. But this is the offensive side of the ball. So as we mentioned, coming down here at the bottom, they only kept 2 quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts and Gardner Minshew. Maybe a slight surprise, kind of what I figured. Stash one on the practice squad, call him up if need be, depending what happens health-wise, etc. 3 running backs. Not surprised there at all. I don't know about Scotty Sanders, Gainwell, Scott. They weren't keeping 4. You go to the wide receiver room. I had them keeping 6. They only keep 5. Obviously, Jalen Reagor, as of this moment, is still a Philadelphia Eagle, barring a trade if anyone is actually interested. They keep 3 tight ends. Let me get that out of the way first. Dallas Goedert, Jack Stoll, Grant Calcaterra. Not surprised there. Obviously, when Tyrese Jackson is eligible to play, maybe they'll switch something up there. 10 offensive linemen, Scotty. Not just 10 offensive linemen. Jack Anderson gets cut. Josh Sills, 3rd string left guard, undrafted, makes the team. Thoughts on the offensive side of the ball? Any surprises? Any locks? Obviously, the Sills thing, Jalen Reagor, whatever.
Honestly, no. I don't see any surprises. I mean, the running back room, Jason Huntley. Do you really care? I mean, that's not a huge deal. I would if I want to upgrade the running back room, I'm going to upgrade guys above Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell. Like that's my goal. So wasn't surprised there. Wide receiver room, if you want to call it a surprise, that would be the biggest one, I guess.
Right here. Yep.
Who do you think we're keeping out of those guys? Like Covey, I mean, that was the guy that people liked. Devin Allen, there wasn't a chance.
Deion Kane. Now they're hoping to bring back either 1 or 2 of Covey and Kane. Hopefully get them on the practice squad.
I don't think Kane will make it, but if they do, that's a good solid piece to have on the practice squad. I would say Kane is probably the guy that impressed me the most from what I saw throughout preseason. But when I say that, it's not that impressive. So
right.
take it with a grain of salt.
I think he had like 2 catches for 16 yards in the final preseason game.
Yeah, no surprises overall though. Like you said, if they had a quarterback, great. But Gardner Minshew, I mean, that's your backup quarterback. I'm cool with Gardner Minshew as a backup quarterback. That's what
100%.
he's a pretty solid backup. So overall, no surprises. Offensive line, we knew there was going to be a lot of bodies there. They always give a lot.
I had them keeping 9 when I projected with Phil. I had them keeping 9 and 6 receivers. Obviously, they dock themselves a receiver and keep an extra offensive lineman. The only surprise would be that Josh Sills was the third left guard kept. But clearly they saw something they liked. And again, I'm not the guy that's going to sit here and nitpick or argue or be upset about who your 10th offensive lineman is that you kept. I'm sure there will be people out there. I'm sure there's fans, some podcasters, whatever the case may be, that are that in depth with it. I'm not that guy, Scotty, because if it gets down to the nitty gritty and God forbid Josh Sills has to play, guess what? They're already in trouble. It wasn't going to make a damn of a difference if it's Josh Sills, if it's Laverne Clark. Hell, I can't speak tonight. Or Jack Anderson. Cannot speak tonight. But let's move on. Let's scroll down real quick. Just get the special teams out of the way. Obviously, Jake Elliott and Rick Lovato are there as well. So they still have Greg Wood listed on this roster on the Eagles website. Now, I know that he had the injury settlement, so I'm curious to see what ends up happening there. If they bring him back in a couple of weeks, maybe that's why he's still listed, and that's why they only kept 5 right now, because the plan is to bring Greg Ward back when he's healthy. We'll see.
I think, honestly, that is the case, because when I looked on Philadelphia Eagles website, I think it may honestly be up or below. It may be above what you're looking at, but
he's up here as well
on the IR.
Oh, okay.
So I guess they put him on IR with that injury. Maybe they didn't settle and cut him, which I'm not against that, because I had joked about it to you, but Greg Ward, I mean, he's reliable as a 6th wideout. Like, are we going to complain about Greg Ward? And then 2, God forbid, he can play quarterback. He's played it in his career. So he can take up two roster spots with one position, or 2 positions with one roster spot with Greg Ward. But hopefully we don't ever want to see it come to that, of course.
He just snuck it in there. God forbid we have to see Greg Ward play quarterback.
Greg Ward.
Now, one position that people want to see upgraded still, Scotty, the punter. Aaron Sipas. People, listen, I guess I have a bad memory. I thought I had a great memory. I guess I have a bad memory. But I did forget how bad. What?
I thought he was all right last year.
Yeah, but I did forget that he was absolutely awful in the playoff game.
Yeah, you are right.
Yeah, I did. Someone brought that to my attention today, and I forgot about it. I think multiple. I think
a couple within our own 50.
So that obviously you don't want to see that, especially in a critical moment of an important game. But, and I'm not going to stress over the punter at the moment until week 1 comes and we're backed up on our goal line and he shanks one to the 18, then we're going to have a big problem. But that is TBD. Now let's get to the defensive side of the ball. What we just spent the first 20 minutes talking about with the addition of. Actually, I don't even see him. Am I missing something?
Is he not on there?
Yeah, he's not on here. So, I'm pretty sure this is updated. Yeah, it is. But anyway, they haven't added him yet, but CJ Gardner-Johnson will be right here in this spot. Marcus Epps, a surprise here for me a little bit. Kevon Wallace still on the team. Reed Blankenship gets the nod, Scotty, as well as Josiah Scott, Josh Jobe, Avonte Maddox, Slay, Bradbury. You can read the list from there. Outside of that, Teron Jackson makes the team as a backup defensive end. Marlon Tuipulotu. Some depth there at the defensive tackle spot. I'm not shocked with the depth they kept at the defensive line spot. The only thing that really jumps off the screen to me on the defensive side, besides Kevon Wallace still making the team, is how many linebackers they kept. Now, I know Hassan Reddick's listed as a linebacker. We know he'll be moved around, mostly playing on the edge, but he's a linebacker. Edwards, Kazir White, Nakobe Dean, we figured those 4. And I know a lot of these guys are going to play on special teams as well, so there's a role for them. But Patrick Johnson, Davion Taylor had a bad camp, a bad preseason. He made it through. Sean Bradley. And then the kid out of Kansas, Kyron Johnson, gets the nod as well. I know they liked him from the jump. So,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts there on the defensive side?
Yeah. I mean, the Kyron Johnson, Pat Johnson, I think those are probably the last guys in on that linebacker unit. Patrick Johnson apparently is somebody who's a stud in special teams, but also he had a sack the other night against Tua. He threw Tua to the ground, which I love seeing that.
And then the Dolphins kept Tua in the game.
Right. That was odd behavior after they skipped practice the next day against our ones. That's a whole other story though. But Kyron Johnson, that's somebody that Ross Tucker was talking about on the broadcast, really hyping him up as far as the range that he has, the athleticism that he presents, the strength from that linebacker. He can be an edge rusher. He's kind of one of those tweener guys. So he's interesting. How about Josh Jobe? I know that was somebody that George, once again, shout out to George, the listener, hopefully doing his own stuff on DSM Media soon, huh?
We'll see.
But we always shouting out George, but George did call out Josh Jobe, kind of showing his stuff throughout the preseason. Eagles obviously believed in him, let go of Andre Shashier, I believe is how you say his name.
Shashier,
yeah, they let go of him.
That was the guy they thought they could keep.
Yeah, everybody thought they were going to keep him. He's kind of an in-betweener, safety, corner, DB, all-around type of guy. They decided to keep Josh Jobe, I would imagine, over him. But nonetheless, that would be the only, if you want to call it a surprise. I don't think it's a surprise per se. But I don't know. You just look across the board. I guess my question to you, Dylan, would be, what's the weakest position group now? You upgrade safety where, obviously we're not banging.
I know my answer.
Upgrade anything. What is the weak spot? Would it be quarterback?
Running back.
And I'm not even saying quarterback as a shot at Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, but question mark. So the biggest question mark is for sure the quarterback position because of the unknown. But that's not to say that there's no belief
exactly
or hype behind him. I would say that my biggest concern is the depth of the running back room, the health of the running back room with Miles Sanders.
Yeah.
We've talked about this numerous times. They'll be fine. We witnessed it last year. You don't go behind that offensive line and, need Jonathan Taylor behind it. You don't have the number one rushing offense in all of the NFL last year with, Gainwell, Scott, and, 82-year-old Jordan Howard, it feels like, who's been on the team 4 different times. So they'll be okay, but it's still somewhat of a concern. The only reason I kind of retracted it a little bit earlier today is because we know they want to pass the ball.
Mm-hmm.
Their identity this year, not that they shouldn't run the ball, not that they won't run the ball. They're not going to do what they did last year.
Yeah.
We know they want to pass. We know they went out and got A.J. Brown. We know everything they went out and did. They are going to be a pass-first team, as is every other team in this league is trying to be. 49ers, who love to pound the ball down your throat, want to be a high-powered, fast-paced passing offense, right? So I'm a little less concerned because that means less touches, less responsibility. Those guys can also be pass catchers out of the backfield. But I would say running back is definitely the weakest group at this point.
Yeah. And I love how you pointed out, kind of retracting, because I felt the same way coming into the show today. When I knew we would talk about the running backs at least a little bit. The only concern is Miles Sanders in that hamstring. I mean, I don't want to go multiple weeks with just Boston Scott and Gainwell, obviously. But I think where I would retract, and I'm kind of on the same page as you, we don't need somebody better than Miles Sanders, right? We don't need Kareem Hunt. It would be, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you don't go and get Kareem Hunt. You don't go and get Josh Jacobs if these guys are available for, minimal compensation. But all I would say is you don't have to go out and find somebody that's going to, outperform Miles Sanders. You just need kind of another guy there right in the mix in case Gainwell isn't as impressive as everybody is hyping him up to be. We don't know that about Gainwell yet.
And for weeks we're not playing the New York Giants. We need someone other than Boston Scott.
Exactly. So I think it's as simple as that. I would agree with you, though, as far as retracting the full-on we need to improve this position. It's not necessarily that. I think they just might want to add another body.
But again, man, before we wrap up here, that just shows the importance of the addition of CJ Gardner-Johnson.
Yeah.
Again, it's not just the player itself. It's what it does for everybody around him and how he fits in.
Yeah.
Now to a greater extent, because AJ Brown is a star in his own, it's kind of what we talked about there as well. It's not just bringing AJ Brown here.
Mm-hmm.
It's what it does to the rest of that room, to the rest of that offense. Now Devontae Smith's not wide receiver 1, he's wide receiver 2. Now Quez Watkins isn't wide receiver 2, he can play in the slot. Now Dallas Goedert has all this room over the middle of the field. It's not just the guy himself, it's how it affects everything else. And just to think that one tweak, no one was expecting this. There was not a rumor to be seen on social media or by anybody about how we working with the Saints, about a potential CJ Gardner. The only thing that came out this morning was that there were teams interested, or a team interested in Jalen Reagor. And obviously that hasn't, worked out just yet, if at all. And this thing comes out, what time, man? 10 a.m., 10:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
And it just, 10, it swept 11. Eagles Twitter off its feet, swept me off my feet. Yeah. It got me saying the NFC is the Eagles to take. That's how damn high I am on this team. Slightly joking. Now, I'm not saying they're the best team
in the
NFC, but the point is, before last year started, we thought there was probably going to be, a 2 to 3 season grace period.
Yeah.
Not just figuring out the quarterback. The roster needed a lot of work. Right. That's why I remember when no one wanted to trade for Russell Wilson because the rest of the roster was so depleted. In less than a year, this has become a top 6 or 7 roster in all of the National Football League. They are all in. They are Super Bowl contenders as of today. They are the favorites on sportsbooks to win their division. So why the hell not? It all comes down to the defensive coordinator. And it all comes down to QB1.
Yeah.
We'll see, man. I need week 1 to get here ASAP.
It's a lot of, it's a lot of talk right now, but rightfully so. They had the best offseason by far so far. And this, just caps it off. And you talk about
it's the best roster.
Again.
It's the best roster I can remember in my lifetime. This roster is better than the 2017 roster, the year they won the Super Bowl. Obviously, it's better than anything before that. It's better than anything in between that. So we're going over a decade and a half.
Yeah.
Obviously, I see people, bringing up the 2004 roster. Obviously, that's the year they brought in T.O. They went to the Super Bowl. I know how good the defense was. McNabb, Westbrook. I got it. I was 6 years old. I remember the Super Bowl. I remember that year. I didn't live it. This isn't me now. So this is the best roster I know of. I remember. I'm going to watch and review in my lifetime that the Eagles have put together.
It's
and that's with that's with 2 Super Bowl with 2 Super Bowl appearances involved and 1 victory. I think that says something.
You talk about AJ Brown, Terrell Owens. He's a most physically
He's not T.O. He's not T.O.
physically dominating wide receiver that we've had since T.O. And that's no diss to Deshaun Jackson, Jeremy Maclin. He's just built different. And that's okay. We're going to enjoy that this season, but I'm with you, man. I cannot wait for some Birds football. This has just got me even more ready. And I can't wait to see Marcus Epps. I'm excited for Marcus Epps. I'm excited for the secondary.
Because now it doesn't look like a hole. Now it looks like a storyline. Marcus Epps next to Anthony Harris feels like a hole. Marcus Epps with the potential that some people see next to Gardner-Johnson seems like something to look for, something to pay attention to, right?
And
it's exciting.
You think about just this will kind of be my last point with Gardner-Johnson, but think about some of those matchups last year where you had like Gronk on the field with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, or you had Travis Kelce on the field with Tyreek Hill and whoever, McCole Hardman, whatever the hell else is going on the other side. Now you have 2 guys. If you have Tyreek Hill in one slot and you got Travis Kelce spread out wide in the other slot, you have 2 guys that you can bring up to go man-to-man with those guys. I think that is huge. You can play around so much, man. It's going to be really, really fun.
And while we're at it, let's not sleep on Kaiser White's ability to drop back into coverage as well. Scotty, I think that's going to wrap up this exclusive edition of NFL Turf Talk. Guys, we will be back this Sunday, 10 a.m. live here on DSM Media, Eagles season kickoff show. I know we just went over the Eagles 53-man roster, but we got a lot of fun segments planned. We're going to review their schedule one more time and give our official record predictions for the season for the Eagles. We're going to talk expectations, player projections, everything that goes into this season for the Eagles. We'll dive into this Sunday, 10 a.m. here on DSM Media, and pay attention for week 1 because my man Scotty and I might be getting together and doing some live turf talk and some live Eagles pregame show for you guys heading in to that one. Check us out on Twitter at DSM_media. Hit that follow button. We greatly appreciate it. Head on over to the YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button, like this video. If we get to 700 YouTube subscribers by the end of the night, we will be giving away a $100 Fanatics gift card. Help us out. We greatly appreciate it. For my man Scotty, check him out on Twitter at Scotty Drown. Myself, you can find me on Twitter at DylanJD98. Enjoy the rest of your night.